Let's get started. Number 10. You find the most efficient way to do everything. Back in 1947, an automobile executive named Clarence Bleicher testified before the United States Senate about his secret weapon for solving impossible problems. He told them whenever he had a tough job in his factory that nobody could figure out, he'd put a lazy man on it. 10 days later, that lazy guy would find an easy way to do it. Then they'd adopt that method for everyone. This wasn't a joke. This was sworn testimony to Congress. And there's actual science behind this. A University of Florida study found that people who score high on what researchers call need for cognition, basically being mentally lazy about physical stuff, scored higher on intelligence tests. These people hate wasting energy on pointless activity. Their brains are constantly looking for shortcuts. German General Kurt von Hammerstein-Equord figured this out in the 1930s. He said anyone who is both clever and lazy is qualified for the highest leadership duties. Why? Because they possess the mental clarity for difficult decisions. They won't overcomplicate things or create extra work just to look busy. Number 9, you automate things others do manually. A designer once got stuck creating employee identification cards. Same template, different names and photos over and over. Most people would just grind through it. But this guy hated repetitive work so much that he spent hours writing a script to automate the whole thing. His laziness created a system that works without him. You see this everywhere in tech. Programmers will spend 3 hours writing code to automate a task that takes 20 minutes. Sounds inefficient until you realize that task happens every single day. The lazy programmer invests effort once to eliminate effort forever. Microsoft Excel has an entire feature called Office Scripts that exists specifically because lazy employees kept finding ways to automate their spreadsheets. Companies eventually realized these shortcuts were so good, they should build them into the software. The hard-working person faced with boring, repetitive work just does it. The lazy person asks, how can I never do this again? Number 8, you avoid burnout because you pace yourself. Stanford University research found that productivity per hour sharply declines when someone works more than 50 hours per week. At 55 hours, the drop is so severe that extra hours become completely pointless. You're just sitting there, accomplishing nothing while feeling exhausted. The World Health Organization found that overwork killed more than 745,000 people in a single year. Burnout costs businesses around $322 billion globally. And burned-out employees are 2.6 times more likely to be job hunting. Lazy people are accidentally practicing sustainable work habits. They're not grinding themselves into dust. They work, they rest, they recover. Their energy stays consistent because they never let the tank hit empty. Research in Time magazine showed that unfocused time activates different brain regions than focused work. When your mind wanders, it connects ideas you wouldn't find while concentrating. The lazy person taking a break is actually doing creative work. They just don't look like it. Number 7, you question whether tasks are even necessary. Most workers spend 31 hours per month in unproductive meetings. That's almost a full work week every month, just sitting in rooms accomplishing nothing. The average employee shows up without question. The lazy employee looks at that calendar invite and immediately thinks, do I actually need to be here? Executives consider more than 67% of meetings to be failures. But people keep scheduling them and attending them because showing up looks like working. Lazy people are natural meeting skeptics. They don't want to sit for an hour listening to information that could have been an email, so they ask, what's the agenda? What decision are we making? Can someone just send me a summary? These questions save everyone time, but only the lazy person bothers to ask. Harvard Business Review found that employees spend nearly 23 hours a week in meetings now, up from less than 10 hours in the 1960s. Hard-working people absorb those extra hours without complaint. Lazy people looked at them and said, this seems unnecessary. Number 6, you delegate better because you hate doing things yourself. A Gallup study of 143 chief executive officers found that the highest performing companies weren't run by bosses who did everything themselves. They were run by bosses who delegated constantly. Their companies grew faster, specifically because the leader handed off work. Lazy leaders make excellent delegators for an obvious reason. They don't want to do the work themselves. That Reluctance forces them to become good at identifying who can do what. They learn their team's strengths because they need to know who to give tasks to. Most managers struggle to delegate because they believe no one else can do the job as well as they can. Their ego keeps them doing everything. The lazy manager doesn't have that problem. Their desire to not work overrides their ego. They'll hand off anything to anyone competent, and they accidentally develop their team by giving them real responsibility. Number 5, you make fewer impulsive decisions. Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for his research on decision-making. He identified 2 thinking systems. System 1 is fast, automatic, intuitive. System 2 is slow, effortful, logical. Most mistakes happen when people use System 1 for complex problems that need System 2. Quick action requires energy. Careful thinking can happen from a comfortable chair. The lazy person's natural inclination is to wait, consider, and decide later. This habit of hesitation protects them from impulsive mistakes. Research shows that strategic delays activate the brain's default mode network, enhancing creative problem solving by up to 40%. When you step back from immediate action, your mind processes information more thoroughly. One leadership consultant calls this the 24-hour rule. For any significant decision, impose a mandatory waiting period. During those hours, your subconscious continues working on the problem. Insights surface that you would have missed by deciding immediately. The lazy person naturally practices this because making decisions is effort. Their delay isn't a flaw, it's smart. Number 4, you conserve energy for things that actually matter. Your brain uses 20% of your body's total energy despite being only 2% of your body weight. Mental effort has real metabolic costs. Every decision, every task, every bit of focus depletes limited resources. Lazy people are instinctively protective of this resource. They won't spend energy on things they don't care about. This looks like weakness until something actually matters to them. Suddenly, all that conserved energy is available. Think of it like battery management. The hard-working person keeps their battery at 20% all the time, constantly drained. The lazy person hovers around 80%. When a real challenge appears, guess who has capacity? Animals in nature do this automatically. They rest when possible and explode into action only when necessary. Human productivity culture convinced people that constant exhaustion is a virtue. The lazy person never bought that lie. Number 3, you're harder to exploit with busy work. Some workplaces have a dark pattern. Managers create unnecessary tasks to make it look like things are happening. Reports nobody reads, meetings about meetings. This busy work exists because activity feels productive to observers. Lazy employees are remarkably resistant to this manipulation. They can smell fake work from across the office. Their allergy to effort makes them excellent at detecting when effort is being wasted. Researchers found that employees who participate in every possible activity often enable micromanagement cultures. Their willingness to do anything creates an expectation that everything will be done. The lazy person's pushback creates boundaries that protect entire teams. Workers lose over $6,000 annually on average to unnecessary meetings alone. Tech employees waste 169 hours per year at nearly $10,000 per person. Someone needs to question whether all this activity accomplishes anything. The lazy person is already asking. Number 2, you accidentally practice strategic patience. Adam Grant, an organizational psychologist at Wharton, did research on procrastination that surprised everyone. He found a sweet spot between finishing immediately and waiting until the last moment. People who started tasks then deliberately set them aside came up with more creative solutions than people who powered straight through. Starting a task activates it in your brain. Stepping away allows incubation. Your subconscious keeps working while you're doing other things or nothing at all. Lazy people do this naturally. They start something, lose interest, wander off, then eventually return. What looks like a character flaw is actually an effective creative process. Warren Buffett describes his strategy as waiting for fat pitches. He doesn't swing at everything. He waits, sometimes for years, until an opportunity aligns perfectly. Lazy investing, some might call it. He calls it not making unforced errors. Number 1, you discover shortcuts nobody else bothers to find. Efficiency experts in the early 1900s made an interesting discovery. Frank Gilbreth studied bricklayers to find the fastest techniques. He expected to learn from the highest producing worker. Instead, the best insights came from a slower worker who had figured out ways to reduce unnecessary motion. The hardest workers were too busy working to think about working better. The lazier worker had spent that time optimizing. The famous quote about choosing a lazy person to do a hard job gets attributed to everyone from Bill Gates to Walter Chrysler. Nobody can prove who said it first, but everybody keeps repeating it because it matches what they've observed. Lazy people have a fundamentally different relationship with obstacles. A hard-working person sees a difficult task and thinks, "How do I power through this?" A lazy person sees the same task and thinks, "How do I make this not difficult?" One approach is admirable. The other is intelligent. The shortcuts lazy people find often become standard practice. That weird workaround someone invented because they didn't want to follow the official process. Turns out the official process was inefficient. They found a better way because they were allergic to the hard way. So next time someone calls you lazy, consider what you're actually doing. You're conserving energy for important tasks. You're avoiding burnout through sustainable pacing. You're questioning whether activities are necessary. You're finding shortcuts that others miss. You're not lazy. You're efficient. You just look lazy to people who confuse activity with accomplishment. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos covering psychology, history, and all the weird ways human brains actually work. Subscribe if you want to learn things that make you sound smart at parties.